Awesome. So we've been going through Hebrews. As you know, it's been fantastic. It's been Jesus is greater. The author has made, side note, I do want to tell you, I apologize. For some reason, not all of the outline got printed on the bulletins, only about half of it. So if you're a person who takes notes, just know that towards the bottom you're going to need that extra space to fill in the extra 45 minutes or so after that. So we've been going through Hebrews. The author has been saying over and over and over, Jesus is better than angels. Jesus is better than the priests. Jesus is better than Moses. Jesus is the better sacrifice. And so look at all these people who were looking to Jesus in chapter 11. Look at all these people who before Jesus were looking to Jesus as a better thing. They didn't know it was Jesus, but they were looking to a better thing, and they endured all kinds of terrible things. And even Jesus himself, the author says, was looking to something better. That's how he was able to endure time on this earth around sinful people and being persecuted and beaten and going through what he went through. Even Jesus was looking to something better after he'd completed his purpose, and that's how he endured. And so he's telling us now we need to look to something better to endure the difficulties of this earth, to resist sin. Look to Jesus, that better thing. And he tells us that there's some things that we need to pursue, right? He says, focus on Jesus, make straight level paths, and pursue a couple virtues. We're going to read this together real quick. So we're in Hebrews 12, verses 14 through 17. Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. See to it that no one is sexually immoral or is godless like Esau, who for a single meal sold his inheritance rights as the oldest son. Afterward, as you know, when he wanted to inherit this blessing, he was rejected. Even though he sought the blessing with tears, he could not change what he'd done. It's a little confusing there at the end, if you ask me, but we'll look at that. We'll go through that. So we're going to go through our two important virtues that he starts out with. All right, he mentions two of them, peace and holiness. Now, as we go through this, we're going to look at what it looks like to pursue peace and what it means to pursue holiness, and then we'll tackle that weird part at the end. But it's interesting. So he's been talking about Jesus is better, look to Jesus. Even Jesus looked to something better. And then he tells us to pursue something that he's already told us are two of the main characteristics of Jesus as he's been going through this. Earlier, he compared Jesus to Melchizedek, who was the king of Salem, the king of peace. And he says how Jesus is better than that king of peace. And he talked about how Jesus was a better priest because he was holier than those priests. He wasn't sinful. He wasn't limited by death. And so his sacrifice, his priestly work was better, was holier than what the earthly priests were. And so it's cool that as he's been going through this letter, now he tells us to pursue two things that he's already shown us Jesus was better at, was better in. And so these are the two virtues that he tells us to attack, or tells us to pursue. And so let's look at what it means to pursue peace. What do you guys think of when you think of peace? Start in your head when you think of peace, a lot of different things can come up. What's that? No conflict. That's a common one. Calm, heaven, relaxed. Those are all really, really good ones. The conflict one is one that always kind of gets us. Because there's a reality that we live in right now, right? There's a reality that actually is kind of, it seems dichotomous to us. It seems in conflict to us. Jesus died on the cross and he said, it is finished. He said, you're free from your sin. All these things have been accomplished. And it's true, maybe you've heard the term, we call it the already not yet. Things are already done, it's finished, the war's won. But not yet, because we're on this earth surrounded by brokenness, surrounded by strife, surrounded by all these difficult things, our own selfishness, right? The spiritual battle that continues to wage, we're still here fighting that. And so the reality is that there's no way while we're here we can be at peace with everyone. It's kind of scary to think about that God asks us to pursue something that we won't achieve here. I mean, if you think about, again, that Jesus' character and how he embodies peace, Jesus came to make peace between God and mankind. Is all mankind at peace with God, with Jesus or with God? No, it takes a response to embrace that peace, to pursue that peace, for that peace to exist in that relationship. We can do a lot of things to pursue peace, but it might not always exist in all our relationships. Conflict will still be there sometimes. Jesus says in John 15:18 that the world hated me first. It's going to hate you. Hebrews 11:35 through 39, when he's talking about all those great witnesses who were looking to something greater, he says they were tortured. They refused to be released from jail so that they might gain a better resurrection. Some of them faced jeers and flogging, chains, imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. They were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised. These were examples of people who pursued godlike character. They pursued the peace that God offered. They pursued these characteristics of Jesus that they didn't know were Jesus yet. And they were lauded for it, they were praised for it, yet they never received peace, full peace in their time. And so there's this reality that we have to wrestle with. There's this struggle between pursuing it, yet not always achieving it. And how do we deal with that? How do we handle that? And so we have to ask ourselves a question. Not, does everyone like me? I confess that's a problem I have sometimes. Because if liking is our goal, that'll make us compromise some of our values, some of our actions sometimes, right? If the goal is to get people to like us, we're going to make decisions and do things and say things that are not God-honoring, that are not Christ-like. And so that can't be the question that we ask. That can't be the line that we measure it by. I see it in my son sometimes as a bit of a people pleaser as he's going through elementary school and managing friendships and relationships and different groups of people and nothing serious, but I see him believing certain things about himself or about others that may or may not be true, that aren't true, in an effort to create what he feels like is peace at school. And it breaks my heart sometimes. It's a struggle. So for me, I look at that and say, okay, like isn't the goal. So the question we need to be asking is, and this is between us and between God, and certainly we bring other wise believers in on the question, is have I genuinely pursued peace? We talked about this with forgiveness too. It's something that we do. Pursuing peace is something that we do in obedience to God, out of the love that God has shown us, out of the peace that we have with God, and we don't worry about the results. We pursue it, and we go after it, and we exhibit the Christ-like character, and we let the reactions come the way they may. It's not a passive thought. Matthew 5:9 in the Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. It's active. It's not sitting back and letting everything happen. Well, I'll just, because we do that too. I'll just sit back and I'm not gonna mess with stuff. I'm just gonna put my head down and that's peaceful. But it's not. Christ engaged conflict to bring about peace. And that's scary. That's frightening to think that I might have to engage conflict, to go after something, pursue somebody in order to achieve peace. Because they might not want that. Romans 12:18, if it's at all possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. If it's at all possible with you, live at peace with everyone. It's something that we do in our hearts before God and something we pursue despite what might come. And so this is our goal, to pursue it and not worry about the results. But there's lots of places there might be difficulty. There's lots of places we might face a peaceless environment. And there's different ways to handle it. There's different things approaches to take. At home, I don't know about you, but this can sometimes be one of the most difficult places to pursue peace. I remember in our small group one time having a conversation. We had separated guys and girls and talking, and one of the guys said something that resonated with me so powerfully. He said, when I'm right, I want her to know I'm right. I said, me too. That's right? No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. As believers, we challenge each other to believe truth and to pursue truth. And so if it's a matter of truth, yes, we want to make sure we're pursuing truth, but not make sure I'm right is the conclusion. And that's the difficult part. So at home, there's stop keeping score. It doesn't matter who's right. Are we pushing each other towards Jesus? Are we encouraging each other towards honoring our relationship with Jesus as individuals and then as a couple or as a family? Are we shepherding along those under our care to be people who look to Jesus, who love Jesus, who understand who he is and can make a decision about him? The forgiveness, right? Again, Matthew 18. How many times should I forgive my brother? More times than you can imagine. Oh, dang. Asked the wrong question. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-6. Many of you know this verse, know these verses about love. Love is patient, not becoming upset when they didn't get it after the 8th time. It's kind. It's not harsh. It's not bitey. It doesn't envy. That's going to come up later. Love does not boast. You know I'm right. And if you just say I'm right, everything will be fine. Love is not proud. It doesn't dishonor others. Sometimes it's the people closest to us that we have trouble honoring because of the familiarity. They'll get over it. It's fine. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. This one hit me. I had to wrestle with that one. Anger is the easiest emotion for me to process most of the time. And so that's my go-to. And then I got it. No, not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. At home, it's so important not to throw out that scorecard, because it's going to be a deep scorecard. Throw it out. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in truth. Jesus, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So together in the home, when we're pursuing peace, we're rejoicing in Jesus and his character and what he says and how he leads and how he changes us. There's also church. And don't think of just this building. Think of the community of believers. Everywhere there's a denomination that might think something you don't. I'm not talking world religions, everybody's going the same place. That's not what I'm talking about. But when there's Jesus preaching churches, there are brothers and sisters. Ephesians makes a huge deal out of this. Ephesians 4:3. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. We're all combined. We've been unified in Jesus through his Holy Spirit, and we need to keep it peaceful. Some of the most destructive diseases are when our own body attacks itself. Because now what do? Now we got to slap the body to heal the body. Colossians 3:12-15. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. It's Jesus' work first that impacts our actions, that impacts our heart, that impacts our decisions. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body, you're called to peace. And be thankful. Be thankful that we're combined in this unity and that we're called to this peace. I don't know if you know people in your life who are constantly in an unsettled state. And there's stress, and there's anxiety, and there's fear, and there's trauma, and we can see it. It comes through in everything. And sometimes it's in our own lives. Situations and relationships that are not peaceful are hard. I think both Jesus and Paul avoided certain situations at times because I know it says Jesus didn't go to that town because they were going to kill him. So in order to keep peace, he didn't go there. Sometimes that's an option. But at church, it's not. At church, we're called to engage each other, to love each other, to be at peace with each other. And so there's some things we need to do. Don't expect everyone to know what you know. The Bible continues to use the image of a body, right? The finger's not a toe, the knee's not an eyeball, your tongue's not other things. Everything has a purpose, and everything has a gifting, and everything grows at different rates. We grow at different rates. People can hear the same message, and because of the circumstances in their lives, it affects them differently, it impacts them differently, and they come away with a different highlighted piece. That's the beauty of the Holy Spirit moving in all of us. applying truth to our lives so that we put it in our lives. It's not just some cerebral philosophical truth that we come away with and we all have the exact same peace. No, we have this truth, but then it soaks into our lives and it impacts our days differently. And that's the beauty of it. We all grow at different rates and in different places. We have different specific missions. I heard of an awesome ministry where women go into brothels, go into prostitutes' places, and into strip clubs, and they minister to them. I'm not meant for that ministry. Okay? They shouldn't expect me to be made for that ministry. We're all gifted and placed in different areas to fulfill the mission of the church, which is other people, not ourselves. And so we can't expect other people to know what we know or to grow the way we grow or to be at the same pace even. And so there's a patience, there's an understanding, a compassion, a humility that comes with growing together. The other thing we can't do is try to fix everything and everyone. You see this a lot. We are not the Savior. We're called to help people. We're called to do what we can. We're called to sacrifice for those in need. But we are not the Savior. Certainly, practical means of helping the down and out, of loving the broken, of encouraging and the hurting. Those are tangible things that God gives us that make a real difference in someone's life, but they're avenues to the only creation-shattering truth, that Jesus Christ paid us a sacrifice, paid us a debt that was ours, and made peace. That's why we do these things. But we can't fix everyone and everything. Sometimes people, us included, are so trapped by our own selfish desires that we continue to abuse gifts. We continue to not understand why this gift was in my life. I want this. We have to remember that what we're doing is we're pointing people to the person who does change things. We're pointing people to the force, the Spirit, the living, active Spirit of God that is the only thing that can make a difference in their hearts and their minds and their lives. And some people choose not Jesus. In moments, I choose not Jesus. Why would we do that? I don't know. We get selfish. We're surrounded by the brokenness. We're in the already not yet. But we can't fix everything and everyone. Well, that's God's job. Proverbs 26:17. Like one who grabs a stray dog by the ears is someone who rushes into a quarrel not their own. It might not be your fight. Has anybody seen The World According to Garp? It's an old Robin Williams movie. There's this scene early in the movie where he gets attacked by a dog and it bites a piece of his ear off. And then later on in the movie, he sees the dog again, and he's this big-time wrestler, and he wrestles the dog and bites the dog's ear off. That verse makes me think of that scene from The World According to Garp. Him in the emergency room with the dog's ear in his mouth. Sorry. It's not our job to fix everyone and everything. It's not our job to fight every fight. And most of our battles are done in prayer anyway, interceding for people around us, letting God do his job. And so, pursuing peace in the home, pursuing church among the body of believers looks different from each other, and it looks different from the marketplace and society. Pursuing peace in our jobs looks a little different than pursuing peace in our homes or in our neighborhoods. It looks different from pursuing peace in a grocery store. Maybe there's a cashier or a worker somewhere or an attendant somewhere that you see often because of schedules. In our community clubs, we all have affinities, right? I like to play soccer. Play indoor soccer. I meet people there that I wouldn't meet anywhere else, that I don't run into anywhere else. Restaurants we like to go to, places we frequent. That's the marketplace. That's out in society. And there's different expectations. There's different behavioral requirements. And so pursuing peace here, we have to have a different understanding than pursuing peace among our brothers and sisters. Big one is don't expect non-Christians to live like Christians. We should live different from them, right? That's the again, the earth-shaking truth of Jesus is that when I have him into my life, when I choose to follow him, when I pursue Jesus, my life changes. Why would I expect that person who hasn't made that decision about Jesus to behave like me? But we still do this all the time. All the time we do. We lead with morality. I'm totally guilty of this. You shouldn't do that. Well, why? Well, because it's not healthy. With Isaiah, with other people in our lives, we try to point them to actions, moral actions that will improve their lives, rather than saying, well, Jesus died for your body. And treating it that way is really disrespectful for Jesus, the Creator, the God who loved you so much that he gave himself. We don't always lead with Jesus for that life-changing aspect. But that's what changes us. And yet we expect people out and about around us to act and behave like Jesus followers. And they're not. 1 Corinthians 5, 9, 10, and 12. Okay, I'm not pulling any Houdini stuff on you guys. You can look it up. But these are the the verses that are relevant. Paul says, I wrote to you in my letter not to associate with sexually immoral people. And then he switches on them. Not at all, meaning the people of this world who are immoral. I mean, he says, not at all, meaning the people of this world who are immoral or greedy and swindlers or idolaters. Has anybody been greedy before? Okay, we're all in this anyway. In that case, you'd have to leave this world. So when he says don't associate with people who are greedy or idolaters or sexually immoral, he's not talking about the non-Jesus followers. No, we need to engage them. Go engage them because they need to hear the message. They need to see the change.